Mark Russell and Sean Isaacs head to the 80s as the Fantastic Four find themselves drifting apart even more, with Reed continuing to try and prepare the world for the impending arrival of Galactus. But the world's leaders would rather continue to destroy themselves than listen to the one man who can save it all. Mark Russell continues his ridiculously good Fantastic Four storyline by moving the book into the 1980s and with it picking up on all of the Cold War paranoia that era was steeped in, tying in Reed's need to be ready for Galactus' arrival with the US-Soviet Union conflict that was happening at the time, as well as the political climate of the time and just general incompetence of people like the Reagan administration, which means all his warnings fall on deaf ears. There is also this great idea that Russell sort of alludes to, in some ways really subtle, in other ways kind of heavy-handedly, which I don't particularly mind, and that is that Galactus is kind of an allegory for stuff like climate change and stuff like future generations like my generation and the generation after mine will have to deal with, things that boomers are just ignoring. And it's very evident here throughout all of the book, with Reed trying to sort of get ahead of everything but no one around him listening to him and just wanting to do the easiest thing possible. Russell also focuses on Johnny this issue, which makes a lot of sense given how the issue ends. I like the idea that the character, who ages naturally like all the rest of the characters in this series, is now in his 40s and he's dealing with that with kind of like a midlife crisis type thing, and he's trying to hold on to that youth he once had and remember that youth he had and the lessons he learnt in that youth. And he's doing all of this while also being more of a father to Franklin Richards than Reed is being currently. It's a fun dynamic for the character who's always been portrayed as, and no pun intended, a hothead, and it's fitting that he gets such a focus here since really he is the heart of the Fantastic Four and the family. So when the book ends, he does exactly that. He is still that heart and he is able to bring them together once more in a really satisfying way. Sean Isaacs again delivers some brilliant artwork for Mark's storyline, imbuing all of the hallmarks of 80s Marvel into the book, especially at the end of the issue where we get the big action scenes with the nuclear missiles, sequences featuring all of our heroes that were there in the 80s, so like a black-suited Spider-Man and the Silver Centurion Iron Man and the completely armored up Thor, all of which come out looking like $1 million, as well as that final sequence with Johnny and the nuclear warheads, which was just brilliantly coloured and just looked amazing. Fantastic Four Life Story Issue 3 was another awesome installment in Mark Russell's Tale of Marvel's First Family, continuing his brilliant take on the characters while also delivering a topical message about things like climate change and the future being in the hands of the young. I'm going to give this issue a 10 out of 10. Fantastic Four Life Story Issue 3 heads to 1984, where Reed and Tony detail their plan to protect the world to the President, telling them that Galactus is coming and they can be ready thanks to the work that he's doing with Stark Industries on a space-based defense network which will defend the entire planet. Reed dubs it the Strategic Defense Initiative, and Tony says that with American funding they can have it up and running in 5 years. President Reagan likes it, asking his advisors what they think, but Edward says that they could throw funding at it and add in some particle beams, but wonders if they are pointing it in the wrong direction since their biggest threat is the Soviet Union, not Galactus. Other advisors agree, but Reed knows that any idiot would point a gun at their own head since they don't need a space defense program against the Soviets, since the threat of nuclear annihilation keeps them in check. Tony is asked if he agrees, and he does, and he knows space defense against the Soviets could backfire, and if they sense that they are about to lose any nuclear deterrent, they might attack. The advisors hope they will since it's an election year, but Reagan is concerned with the name, wanting something more catchy. Reed knows that Galactus is coming for them and is a threat to the whole human race. The advisors know that almost none of those are taxpayers, and while they like the weapon, they want to aim it at a different enemy. Reagan asks Reed what he thinks, but Reed knows they're wasting their time, leaving the Oval Office. Tony knows it's discouraging, but he needs Reed to give it time since he showed them their idea and they just aren't ready for it yet. Johnny Storm, however, knows lots has changed in the last few years, but most things haven't, like they rarely do. Reed knows that this is the 4th administration he's tried to warn as he heads to the Fantastica, telling Tony to knock himself out, continuing to try, but he's going back to work. Reed leaves Tony to find a ride home as Johnny knows that if you spend your whole life worrying, one of two things will happen. Either disaster will strike, making all the worrying pointless, or it won't, making it a waste of time, and either way it destroys you. Elsewhere, Johnny denies an autograph to a police officer, but then relents, giving the man one. He knows growing up is absolutely likely the most dangerous thing one can do, and that's coming from a man who can set himself on fire. He knows as a kid he knew life was a party, but every adult in one's life tries to make it their duty to prove otherwise, and they shouldn't be allowed to do that. He goes into the police lockup to pick up Franklin. Franklin knows that his dad will be angry, and Johnny knows he probably will be, wanting to get the boy home. Johnny is given the incident report, but outside asks Franklin what happened, learning that his psionic powers took over him again and he couldn't turn them off, so he ran away. He says that he used to think his parents sent him to that expensive boarding school to get rid of him, but it's because nobody would put up with him unless they were paid a ton of money. He knows that they will be mad, wondering if Johnny was any trouble at his age. Johnny burns the report up, saying that he did extort Reed and help him steal a spaceship, wondering if that counts, as he tells the kid everything will be okay. Ben meanwhile makes his pork and beans as Johnny arrives with Franklin, surprising Reed since he's home from school already. Ben is happy to see both Reed and Johnny with him again, asking Johnny to stay for lunch, but he can't since this is the saddest place on earth. Reed asks how Sue is as Johnny hands him over something from her. Reed asks what it is, learning that he's been served divorce papers. Johnny knows that he hated dropping that on Reed right before a TV appearance, but there's no such thing as a good time for bad news. Later on, Reed gets ready for a TV appearance, told by the floor manager that he's just got to stick to Fantastic Four stories and leave the science and Galactus out of it. Reed is brought out onto the show as Jose Santini gets the crowds laughing. Reed is lost in his own mind, knowing that he was a fool for ever taking Sue for granted and for imagining that she was his reward. Jose talks about how a few months prior the world almost came to an end since the Soviet defense system misidentified some weather satellites as US missiles, and lucky the officer in charge ignored the warnings, otherwise they would be all radioactive powder. He asks the host and the audience if they know why the Soviets gave a false alarm in the first place, and it was all thanks to their crummy computers. As Reed knows that he could have been wrong about so many other things as well, Jose continues knowing that unless they create an even bigger intelligence than themselves, they will never save themselves from themselves. Later on, the UN get ready to commemorate the anniversary of Dr. Doom's attack on the UN building in New York. Johnny meets with Sue and Namor as the tour guide talks about Doom's assault on the building, saying that Latveria is a rogue state with secret agents everywhere, which is why Dr. Doom has been incarcerated within the building, yelling at the passing Uruguay representative to come to him. Soon they arrive at the General Assembly, which welcomes Sue Storm to the podium. As his sister talks, Johnny remembers his childhood with powers, using them to impress others and how he would convince others that he was in control, like they all like to think about their lives, but maybe they are just trying to convince themselves they're in control. Johnny is soon welcomed to the podium, where he says that the world is pretty much doomed, hoping that they can all agree on that, saying that the Cold War is the name they came up with the potato sack race to see who can destroy the world first. He knows that if they manage to survive that, Galactus will get them, and if not that, they'll drown in their own smog or sewage. The delegates ask how they can save the world, but Johnny says the world is boned, so enjoy it while it lasts. Later on, Johnny meets with Spider-Man, not believing that they are almost both coming up on 40, asking how Peter is taking it. Peter says that contemporary music is starting to make sense to him now, as Jose Santini says that the government can't simply build missile defense systems without the latest computers, which Sinead thinks maybe he should talk to the president about. Namor meanwhile tells a delegate that if they want to save themselves, they should maybe start with the ocean, seeing as algae produces most of the world's oxygen. Sue thinks that maybe they should also unlock the problem-solving potential of a majority of the human population called women, and offer them more roles in society. Johnny meets with a man who enjoyed his speech, learning that that's what happens when Johnny gets a microphone. He knows that Storm was right and perhaps the world is doomed, and they are waiting to see which unhappy ending it is, but he knows that that's why they can't give in to cynicism. He talks about how he spent time during World War II in a concentration camp, knowing he considered diving into the electrified barbed wire fence like many before him as well. He knew what was the point when they were just as likely to be sent to the gas chambers the next day. He knows that they continued to live, and the gas kept them off the wire, and the wire kept them from fearing the gas. He knows between those two death sentences, he walked to the middle and found it. Johnny wonders what he found, learning from the man that he found how much life stood between them. President Reagan meanwhile is told about the Star Wars defense program, told people like Star Wars. Jose knows that Reed is right and Galactus is coming, but Richards is proof that man can see the big picture and still think too small. He knows that they are pressuring the Soviets too much by flying bombers right at the edge of the Iron Curtain and forcing some minimum wage making guy deciding the fate of humanity before lunch. Jose knows that it's only a matter of time before their luck runs out and a chain of events spark out of their president's control. He wonders in the meantime, how long are they willing to walk in the rain without an umbrella, wanting Reagan to let him take over the Star Wars program and use his computer technology to get it working in 2 years. The president knows they have a deal, as Jose knows all he wants is the pick of the top scientists in America. Later, Jose goes and frees Victor Von Doom, who says that it's degrading to be shackled by a man in a t-shirt. Jose tells him that he'll get used to it, and besides, he should be thanking him. Jose takes Doom to a helicopter on the roof, telling the pilot to go to Latveria, as Victor knows that he'll be rewarded for this. Jose sprays himself in the face with something, knowing that he definitely will be rewarded, not wanting to be called Jose anymore, instead wanting to be called the Mad Thinker, as the villain's face is revealed. As time goes by, Reagan gets a second term thanks to the Star Wars idea, as Reed buries himself in his lab work trying to make an AI to help combat Galactus. Johnny says that at this point the Fantastic Four were basically over, knowing that they're all making solo albums now, making him miss the camaraderie and action. He knows the tragedy brought them together, but with time that fades and you're left with the people who help you survive it. In 1986, Victor and Mad Thinker look over Thinker's new lab, with Victor wondering why he insisted it be built like a bunker and not like a castle. Mad Thinker knows that a castle is too exposed for what comes next. Victor wonders what he means, so Thinker says that he was right about Richards and he wasn't willing to do what it takes to save the world. But neither is Doom. He reveals that he ran quadrillions of computer simulations of the coming battle and there is only a 0.001% chance of them actually winning, and their only way to properly stop Galactus means that they need to destroy themselves, but not completely, only to a point where they seem as cosmic roadkill and Galactus will leave them alone. Victor says that he is mad, and Mad Thinker says that yes, that is his name, and sanity is a disease of only being able to think in small ideas, and now only madness will save them. Later on, Mad Thinker disguised as Jose activates the Star Wars defense system, celebrating with Reagan and other officials, while the news reports the Russians see it as an act of war and have vowed to respond. Johnny meanwhile contacts his sister, who asks if he could pick up Franklin. Johnny says that it's been 2 years already, but Sue says she cannot confront Reed yet, and she would feel better if Franklin was with her during the turbulent times. Johnny agrees to get the boy, as at NORAD, the Americans are alerted to the Soviet air defense system lighting up. In the USSR, Secretary Gorbachev tells his men that they haven't launched anything, as his people tell him the Americans have launched. The Americans meanwhile are told of a Soviet attack, and the tech guys say that the data from Santini's new computers are clear and the Russians are attacking, prompting them into a full nuclear retaliation. The news reports on the nuclear war that's imminent as Sue and Namor watch. Sue knows they have to go and help, but Namor says it's too late and they have to leave the surface world for the water. Sue asks about Franklin, but Namor says they'll just have to start again. Enraged, Sue disappears on the man, as Reed, Ben and Johnny get ready to combat the incoming missiles, as Sue arrives, reunited with her son as she suits up and heads to the roof to rejoin the Fantastic Four once more. Johnny knows that they spend their whole lives trying to be on time for surprises and then wonder why they are always late. He knows that they refuse to live until it's too late and then wonder where it all went, but time went nowhere and neither did they. The team are joined by various Avengers, taking out missiles heading for Russia, as Iron Man knows that it's like Missile Command and they have to protect the targets. The Soviet soldiers meanwhile wonder what they should do, as the Fantastic Four stop all the missiles heading to Russia. Suddenly they see a Russian missile being launched, so Johnny flames on, speeding off after it. He knows he can't follow it into the stratosphere since there's not enough oxygen up there for him to flame on, but he knows where it's going, racing to New York and getting ahead of the nuke. He remembers how everything they can do is party tricks, but he knows that from time to time a party trick can come in handy. The missile explodes above the city as Johnny touches it and absorbs all of the energy, as he knows maybe maturity is mostly just realizing what a jerk you've been, and growing up is just admitting that something matters to you, and maybe despite his best efforts he has grown up. Johnny flames out, plummeting to the ground where the family find him. Johnny says that he can't see as he falls down dead. Johnny's last thoughts were about life being a party, and the joy of being a good party guest is not staying too long, and it's better to be the guy who leaves after an hour while he's still interesting. Later, the news reports on Johnny Storm's Tom's desk as Victor and Mad Thinker watch the news. Victor wonders if Thinker will return home, but the villain wants to stay, noting how the architects of the bunker they made had a mistake in their building plan, since all of the doors lock from the outside. Doom leaves, locking the door, saying that his new prisoner will get used to it. In 1989, Reed, Sue, Franklin, and Ben all visit Johnny's grave. Sue hugs Reed, knowing that the world is too quiet without Johnny. Ben tells his old friend to go easy, leaving Reed alone with the grave. Reed tells Johnny that they didn't always get along, and he's sorry, as Johnny knows that even if you leave the party unannounced, it's okay, since the party still carries on without us.